So we've got this verse here. So straight away we've got this entire concept before us. Now Yosef could not bear all those standing beside him, and he called out, "Take everyone away from me." So no one stood with him when Yosef made himself known to his brothers. Okay, the gematria is exactly the same as that verse that we've just been looking at. Okay, so straight away we know, if you want to understand the concept of the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, you've got to go and have a look at this particular situation. You know, Yosef hidden in Egypt from his brothers, and the whole build up of that, and everything involved with the story of Yosef is really paralleled in the story of Mashiach ben Yosef, who is Yeshua. Okay, so this point where he's revealed to himself, at the point of revelation, that is where we stop riding on a donkey and start riding on the horse. And well, it's the concept of Mashiach is elevated up so that the king and the queen are riding on horses, not donkeys. Okay, but it's elevating that understanding of Od Yosef Chai. Okay, Yosef is still alive, and it's attaining everything to do with that, and then applying it to these last 2,000 years of the Messianic era in order to interpret that last 2,000 years correctly, you know, including all the negative stuff that's happened, and understanding that Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh has done everything in these last 2,000 years despite all the suffering and pain that we have suffered, in order to bring us to that place of maturation where we are able to perceive clearly there's only Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, nothing else beside him. So that's the regular ordinal. 4,555 is 5 times 911. 911 is the word Reshith, which means beginning, as in Bereshith, in the beginning. So this is suggesting that this is the beginning in which the end is revealed. Okay, so the end is that place where the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh is fully revealed, and you know, Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh is riding on that. Very interesting stuff. So let's go back. So then we've got this number here, 653. Where do we get that from? This is the luminaries rectified. Okay, so the word for luminaries is spelt defective in the Torah. If we include the 2 extra vavs that represent the truth concerning the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, the truth concerning the concept of Mashiach ben Dawid. Okay, Mashiach ben Dawid is not revealed until the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef is known. Okay, so until the king is elevated up on a rise on a horse, then the kingdom is not revealed, and it's the kingdom of David that needs to be revealed. Okay, his throne is Mashiach ben Yosef, according to Vilna Gaon. So we can see that this verse is also connected to the rectified spelling of the luminaries. If this word was spelt correct in the Torah, it's not, it's diminished. But why is it diminished? Because we have got a work to do. And the Torah, in its literal sense, is like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It does not reveal the glory of the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh to the fullest extent possible. It's for us toiling to find that truth in order to reveal the truth. Okay, and I've pointed this out before. The truth is, it says in Tehillim, the truth sprouts from the land. Okay, and this is really very much connected to the barley cycle and the wheat cycle. If you're able to perceive, and I've done some teachings recently on the spring, if you're able to perceive the truth as revealed in the barley cycle, which is really the whole cycle of Mashiach ben Yosef, the process of revealing Mashiach ben Yosef from immaturity to maturity, and then the wheat the wheat cycle, the wheat harvest, is the process of revealing Mashiach ben Dawid that comes after that revelation, until we get to receive the Torah, where King David was born and died at Shavuot. The Torah is given at Shavuot, and the Torah is a full revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. Okay, so this truth that we are looking for in this world is as clear to us as the the truth that we are able to see and eat and touch, that's revealed through the barley cycle and the wheat cycle, and to understand the truth that has been revealed in those two processes, those two grains, is the truth that's missing. Okay, it's the truth that's missing, and the Vav represents truth, because Vav is a 6th letter in the alphabet, and Vav 6 times 6 is 36, and the ordinal of HaEmeth is 36. Okay, I've just brought this Psalm 85 up to show you this concept of the truth sprouting from the ground, and how that's really truly related to the barley and the wheat harvest. I shall hear that God will speak when he speaks peace to his people and his pious men, and they will not return to folly. I await this day. Truly his salvation, Yeshua, truly his salvation is near to those who fear him, so that his glory dwell in our land. This is what we're wanting out. We wanted the presence of his glory to be revealed. Kindness and truth have met. This is talking about Mashiach, Yeshua and Moshiach. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Truth will sprout from the earth, and righteousness will look down from heaven. And this HaEmeth, Me'eretz, Titzmach, the initial letters even spell HaEmeth, truth. So truth will sprout from the ground, and righteousness will look down from heaven. Okay, when the truth sprouts from the ground, when we are able to perceive even the absolute secrets of the Torah that are revealed in the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, and everything that points to, the new moon and Pesach and Shavuot, the festivals, and all that's involved with that, that distinguishes Israel from the nations, and all the wonderful things. God too will give good, and our land will give its produce. Okay, so I just really wanted to point that out because it's just so glorious, and plus it's got this concept of Yeshua. It's spelt slightly different, isn't it? But it's his salvation basically, but exactly the same letters as Yeshua, just the Vav and the Ayin would be the other way around. Okay, so it's all wonderful stuff. It's pointing and indicating the things that we're talking about in this lesson. Okay, so back to this then. So that is the truth that sprouts from the ground. The truth regarding the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, Od Yosef Chai, and the truth regarding Mashiach ben David. And as we can see, this verse is clearly linked to this. The regular of that, the ordinal is 68, which is exactly the same as the square ordinal of David. So Daleth, Vav, and Daleth, all squared, comes to 68. So we know that this is Mashiach ben David. If we add those two together, it comes to 721, which is exactly the same as Yaakov squared, the squared ordinal of each letter in the name of Yaakov, 722. So we know this rectified luminaries is to do with David and Yaakov. Yaakov obviously is, when he's told the truth, Od Yosef Chai, and united, and that ushers in David, Mashiach ben David. It's the truth, Od Yosef Chai, and as we saw from here. Okay, but before we reach a revelation of that truth, we've got to experience this truth in exile. So we've got to toil with this. It's very dark and it doesn't appear. He came riding on a donkey. It wasn't Mashiach as we expected him. He didn't usher in the final redemption. He didn't bring peace on earth. There was a process involved. What is that process? Let's go and have a look. Because prior to him revealing himself to his brothers, and through that revelation, revealing the absolute glory and authority and sovereignty of the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, we have this. And he said, I called out from my distress to the Lord, and he said to me, from the belly of the grave I cried out, you heard my voice. So Yosef is not revealed in and of himself. It's the whole process, and it's the whole exile of Yosef into Egypt, and all the reasons for that, to give us a work to do ultimately, and it's very difficult to discern. We've got what's called hindsight now. We're coming to the end of the Messianic era, so we've got hindsight. We can look back and we've got this great gift. We can look back and assess the entire experience of this messianic period of 2000, this messianic era, and see now the hand of Yod-Heh-Wawi throughout the entire of that period. But we were presented initially with this scenario, and he said, I called out from my distress to the Lord, and he answered me from the belly of the grave, and I cried out, you heard my voice. So this is the fact that without the descent of the Mashiach, we don't have the ascent. Without the exile, we don't have the redemption. Without the death, we don't have the resurrection of the dead. Without the false Messiah, we don't have the truth, because it's for us to reveal from that false concept of Mashiach the truth regarding the Mashiach, and therefore revealing the truth. There's only Yod-Heh-Wawi and nothing else beside. But without this metatronic, exilic state of immaturity, where we're not able to perceive reality properly, because we haven't come to the full maturity of the Messianic era. So we haven't got this period of hindsight. But then once we get to that place of maturation, we can then see there's only Yod-Heh-Wawi and nothing else beside him, and everything becomes good. We got to attain that place where we know even the exile, the crushing pain of exile, in the pain of growth, the growing pains, and the birth of Mashiach, the birth of those right fruit, the birth of the barley that comes from the earth, and then everything everything that leads to, the whole celebration of the festivals and things like that. Everything is good. Everything is good. Even the evil shells themselves, they served a purpose that was good to protect us in our state of immaturity until we were ready to break free from those shells. So evil in itself has served a purpose. Metatron, our guardian, that is, there's two sides to Metatron. He acts like a guardian angel or Hasatan. We've all experienced that when we've been walking on our journey of faith. We've all experienced the rod of Elohim that's in one way guided us and another way beat us up. As I have anyway. And this whole humility of being under a guardian and not quite been able to perceive Yod-Heh-Wawi face to face, and it's a frustration. What do I have to do now to please him and things like that? But all this is part of that maturity, and at some point you've got to want to totally break free from that mentality and guardianship and want to enter into the King's Palace face to face with the name Yod-Heh-Wawi. Okay, but it's all part of it. It's all part of it, even that frustration at being bound to these exilic states of consciousness. Okay, so we've looked at this number. Now let's have a look at this one. We've got the letter Nun, where it's got the Vav included. All the main names, Yaakov, Moshe, Yeshua, Esav, or whichever ones, or all of them, I've filled out each letter as it sounds up to the second fill-in, where I've done the Nun with the Vav and without the Vav, because in exile this Vav is diminished, the truth is diminished. But like I say, that is giving us the work to do to reveal it. But even the truth that's diminished in these states that don't reveal the full glory and put us under this immature, this guardian of metatronic consciousness, where we're able to perceive Yod-Heh-Wawi through the cracks of exile, even that in itself is important. So some of the numbers, as you will see, some of those numbers that reveal some of the numbers, the fillings out of the main names that lead us to a true understanding the concept of the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Wawi. When I've included the Nun, you get a certain number. When I've included the Vav in the Nun, there's a certain numerical value. And then when it's not included, there's a certain numerical value. And both those numbers are highly significant, as we will find out later. So the Nun is very important. It's got exactly the same gematria as this verse, and this is like Joshua ben Nun, isn't it, who's an appellation for Mashiach ben Yosef. And then we've got Da'ath, knowledge, Ad supernal Da'ath, is, or the supernal da'ath really is represented by Moshiach, who is the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. Talked about that a lot in my lessons. So 756, this is really restoring our supernal da'ath to Moshe, our supernal da'ath being a completely restored understanding of Moshe, who is the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. And until we have that complete knowledge of the Mashiach of Moshe at the level of our supernal da'ath, or at the level of our knowledge of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh will be incomplete, and that we will have something else there instead. And the thing that we have there instead is the serpent, and the serpent is synonymous with the false Messiah. So if we don't have Moshe there, the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, we will have something else. We might have some aspects of the truth, but there will be something also that bites us. And until we totally and utterly remove the delusion, any delusion regarding the concept of Mashiach from our realm of knowledge, will result in a false understanding of the Mashiach, and then a false understanding of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh as a consequence of that. Okay, so we're in a process of maturing so that we don't have a serpent biting us anymore. That is completely and totally being rectified from the serpent that we're given to the Mashiach that we have got to toil to reveal through toiling with the truth, the secrets of the Torah, things like that. So I've done videos on it. There's videos where I've got a picture of the Pharaoh with a serpent in front of him. You know, they have these like domy hats with the serpents. All the pharaohs had that. That's our exiled consciousness, isn't it? We're in exile until we're in exile with a serpent at the forefront of our minds, until we put, you know, like the tefillin. You've got to have the tefillin there at the forefront of our minds that represents the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. And obviously that concept is very much connected to the concept of Moshe, the Mashiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. Okay, so let's just go and have a look at this verse from Luminaries so that we can see what we're talking about. Maybe not in that order, got in the wrong order. We will come to this next. And God said, let there be luminaries in the expanse of the heavens to separate between the day and between the night, and they shall be for signs and for appointed seasons and for days and for years. This is very important because obviously the barley harvest determines the beginning of the months. It should do. We're in a state of exile where it's not. So the whole cycle is really connected to the barley harvest, but it's been changed and pre-calculated. And so even that in itself is not able to fully reveal the truth regarding Mashiach, because the truth about Mashiach ben Yosef is bound up, and the entire revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh is bound up to the beginning of months commencing at what's called the Aviv, which is a certain level of maturity regarding the barley harvest. Okay, and then everything else leads on from that revelation. So when you take that out of the equation and you base your calendar and the entire of the Hebrew calendar on something that is not connected to the barley harvest, you're not going to yield the same revelation as you need to put the king and the queen on a horse rather than a donkey. You're going to be poor in knowledge, because it's all, the truth is all bound up with the barley harvest that leads on to the wheat harvest, and you can't have one without the other. So and this is the sadness with the calendar that we've got at the moment. The calendar does not link up to the Aviv, and it's pre-calculated, and that in itself diminishes that revelation. It leaves us in a state of poverty. Mashiach will come and give us the true calendar and override the current situation where we've got Hillel II, who instituted a pre-calculated calendar. Okay, anybody who's listened to any of my teachings, but this was the will of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, because it's for us to reveal the truth, not be handed it to us on a plate. We've got to find this truth for ourselves. We've got to search out, and we've got a lot of indication where that truth is. We're told truth sprouts from the earth, from the land. What's the most significant thing that comes from the land? The barley and the wheat. That's the most significant thing. So there we look there, and we're going to find a lot regarding these this truth that we need, so that these luminaries, and we can see here Oroth, there's no vavs in them. That's within the actual Torah. So the literal interpretation of the Torah itself is not enough. We literally have to understand that barley harvest. We literally have to understand the wheat harvest to gain the truth, so that the luminaries, which are synonymous with the Mashiach, are fully revealed, and henceforth the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. Okay, let's go back. So then we've got this number here. We've got the Mispar Gadol of this verse, 8,496 plus 756 comes to 9,252, which is 771 times 12. Okay. This is the most significant 771 that I've come across. So there's Nes Gadol HaYasham, which is the letters on the dreidel outside of Eretz Yisrael, and then you've got Nes Gadol HaYapo. Nes Gadol HaYapo, the letters of the dreidel within Israel. So this is in exile, this is redeemed. Okay, the letters in exile are the same as 358, which is exactly the same as Moshiach or Nachash. Okay, so and then there's got 258 here. This is for this statement, Nes Gadol HaYapo, great miracle happened here. So this whole story of Hanukkah, the whole rededication of the temple, everything like that is connected to the concept of redemption and exile. But as you can see, both need to be united together. Our experience in exile and our experience in redemption is united together as one. 771, there's loads and loads that you could talk about that. The entire dreidel is, or everything to do with Hanukkah is messianic, everything to do with the Torah is messianic. It's all pointing to a revelation of Mashiach, okay, which is our knowledge of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. So that's connected up there. This is another one that I just came across this just the other day. I was listening to a rabbi, really wonderful teachings all about exile and the forces of exile, because obviously I'm very interested in the forces that prevent us from accessing divine consciousness and messianic consciousness. So I'm interested, and these are the rivers that come out of Eden that split into four heads, the first one being the Pishon river, which is synonymous with the Babylonian exile. So we've still got huge Babylonian influences, i.e. the calendar. Okay, so there's things that occurred, like even the names of the calendar about Babylonian, the names of the months are Babylonian and things like that. There's still something, like I said, all this, you can't have one without the other. You can't have redemption without exile. So you've got to look to exile and see the truth hidden in that, the truth that is actually concealing. So, you know, but you've also got to remove yourself from that state of exile. So Babylon is part of the exile. It's exile from what? It's exile from the truth, HaEmeth. Okay, 68 again, up here. So it's opposite a revelation of David and a correct interpretation of the luminaries. 514. Okay, but it's this number here. It's the Mispar Gadol plus the regular. Comes to 1,542, which is 2 times 771. So this whole influence of Babylon, which, like I say, the most significant influence that remains today is the calendar that is born out. There's Babylonian influences in the actual calendar, and this is preventing people from accessing this. So this is like the river of Metatron. This keeps you in Metatronic consciousness. You need to cross this river, and in order to access divine consciousness, to stop the concept of Mashiach, you know, riding on a donkey, and elevate the concept of the Mashiach up through the secrets of the Torah that are revealed in the true Hebrew calendar. Okay, the true cycle of the seasons that are determined by the sun and the moon, and that are also determined by the Aviv, the barley harvest. Okay, so if you remove that from the calendar, you're removing basically the truth that is needed in order to correctly illuminate. And you're stuck in tree of knowledge of good and evil consciousness. As long as you do not understand the limitations of the thing that you are currently exiled into, as long as you don't know that you have to get yourself out of that, there's a limitation to that calendar that we have currently got. And as long as you're happy with it, you are not going to have the necessary. As long as you are happy with it, you are not going to have that force and yearning that comes from below to break free of it. It's like, there's an expression in pigs in poo kind of thing. You're going to be happy in your state of diminishment. And you're going to be happy with all the festivals and things that you're keeping in this exile state, which doesn't even reflect the glory of the name Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. It totally and utterly oppresses his name. So you should have zeal for his name to be revealed in truth, okay, and not accept this exile any longer, not a day longer. Hate the and not necessarily the Shabbats, but the festivals and things like that are not in accordance to the true biblical calendar, the truth. So Babylon it erases the truth, especially HaEmeth, which is part of the name. Let's go and have a look at this. 446 is HaEmeth and truth, one of the 13 attributes of mercy found in Exodus. So this is part of the Torah of Moshiach, but it's also part of it's connected to Yaakov. Give truth to Yaakov. What truth? Oh, Yosef, Chai ultimately is the ultimate truth. Okay, Yosef is still alive and we need that revealing, and we need it revealing in truth. Also 147 is the years of Yaakov's life, so we can see it's opposite Yaakov in that way as well. And opposite David and opposite truth. So you want Yaakov to be, fully empowered and invigorated with the truth, O Yosef Chai. You want the Moshiach ben David's kingdom revealed on earth as it is in heaven. And you want the truth to be revealed so that the luminaries are fully rectified and the king and the queen are riding on a horse instead of a donkey. Then we've got to make that. We've got to make that transition from exile to redemption. So now we've looked at all these. Let me just go make sure that there's no verses. All right, this is the verse, isn't it? And more than they, my son, beware. Making many books has no end, and studying much is a weariness of the flesh. 3,855, which is 5 times 771. 771. So this is the state of exile, isn't it? You're creating more and more and more books. More and more and more of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil within our exilic states of mind, with our exiled knowledge of God, knowledge of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and it just wearies your flesh. It's not good news. It's not the good news. And you've got this word basar, it wearies the flesh. It's not bringing us to that place of revealing the good news, the basaroth tovoth, that we want, the good news of redemption. We're just having our flesh wearied. More books, more toiling, more chomping on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, more exile as a result, more the king expected to ride on a donkey. The king doesn't ride on a donkey. You've got Metatron. Okay, so we need to break out of those things that are going to weary our flesh. What's the liberation from that? The good news. That's what we need. We need the good news regarding the salvation that is Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh reveals through Moshiach ben Yosef. We need to elevate. We need to reveal Yosef. This is the good news, O Yosef Chai. This is the good news that our soul needs to hear. This is the good news that Yaakov needs to hear. And it will stop us wearying ourselves with endless books, endless studying, and celebrating that. There's no good news to be found in this. This is just more of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Where's the tree of life? In and amongst all this, we become addicted to exile. We become addicted to study. We become addicted to understanding Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh in our immature mindsets, without the truth. It just goes round and round and round, more of the same old. We've got to break free from our lust for exile. Even if we get a lot of glory from the books that we read and the books that we write, the many, many libraries full, you know, it's wearying to our flesh. We just simply want to experience the truth of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, that his glory fills the earth as the waters cover the sea. Okay? We want to experience his glory, not read about it. We want to breathe him in. We want to see him with our eyes. We want to perceive his perfection in his authority and sovereignty in everything we think, say and do. We can't read about that. We can't read about it. All we can do is read and listen and relate that to what we actually experience. That is the joy that it brings us. Oh, this happened to me the other day. I was listening to a really from, I think his name was Rabbi Alpern. And it was like I said, I was listening to, this is where I got this number from, Babylon, the Pishon, because he mentioned specifically that was Babylonian, related to the Babylonian exile. And I'm interested in things like that, because I'm interested in the things that prevent us from accessing true divine reality. Okay, so I'm listening to him, and do you know, he's irritating me listening to him, but I want to learn. I want to know these things for myself. So I've got to be irritated by all his, you know, exile, what I would call his Erev Rav influence, okay, which everybody's influenced by some kind of exilic mindset. So you've got to listen to all what he's got to say about me, yeshiva and all this, and when they're going to be rewarded for all the Torah study, and you're thinking, yeah, okay, maybe, well, rewarded by who? Metatron. Because it's him who you're serving, as far as I'm concerned. You need to get out of this mentality and start serving Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh in truth. So it's irritating me, but then but this is it. You've got to sometimes battle with these forces to find that truth, and you've also got to be able to, you know, they're doing a very, very great service. I'm not where I am now without all these Jewish people producing all these books and toiling in their Torah study. I stand on their shoulders 100%. Everything I've learned from these people that have gone into the yeshivas and endured this particular exile and found all these treasures hidden in the Torah that now I'm able to perceive and put all these videos together. I'm not knocking it at all. They have done a great, 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 great thing in my life. I am a witness to the greatness and the goodness. So this is them that transforming, even though I am able to perceive the exilic mindset, I also understand it's only for good, because they had to go into that to bring out the glory that's hidden in the Torah and stuff like that. So anyway, just starts talking something so simple. It's always usually simple Torah that you can personally relate to. He starts talking about Moda Ani in the morning and going on about that, and I was out in the garden, doing my garden, planting up my garden for this year, and I'm pushing my fingers into the dirt, listening to this Rabbi Alpern that came from Birmingham, wonderful accent and everything like that, not like my horrible northern English accent, very clipped proper accent, you know, proper British accent, absolutely wonderful. And so he's talking, and when I'm listening to him, you know, with my dirty hands digging down into the dirt, but he starts talking about Moda Ani, and all of a sudden, I don't know where I went, but my soul went up to heaven. It was accessed through these words that this rabbi was saying, you know, and I'm suddenly, I find myself, I'm no longer in the earth plane, even though my fingers are getting dug, my literal fingers are going into the ground, somehow through the words of this Torah teacher. That irritated me for rather a long time, but I persevered because I wanted to learn what it was that he was saying, and I had no other way to learn it, so I persevered with it. All of a sudden he's talking about Moda Ani, and he's talking about that experience of waking up before you even get out of bed, and some Torah around that I couldn't even relate it to. I'm going to go re-listen to it, but all of a sudden I'm up in heaven somewhere. My soul is elevated to a place where I'm absolutely in the King's Palace, face to face with Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. You know, my soul is just filled with joy, absolute joy, at being able to, through this rabbi's words, perceive Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh so clearly, you know, beyond all these exilic forces. So I'm glad I put up with this irritation in my soul, because ultimately through that rabbi's words I were able to access this wonderful realm, you know, this elevated realm, and as holistically and gently. There was no, like, you know, flash of light or anything. It was just irritated, doing again, and hands full of dirt, and then suddenly this breakthrough where your soul is just, it flies away and to a much higher place, and then it just gently back descends, and suddenly I'm aware of myself again in the garden, you know, covered in dirt, and I'm thinking, wow, I just went somewhere wonderful then, and I were really, and it made me so thankful of that rabbi, that all the irritation that I suffered was so worth the joy that my soul experienced through listening to his words, that it literally like an outpouring of joy, and it literally brought me into the king's palace just for a moment. And it's just in everyday life, isn't it? You're just there toiling in the garden, throwing your hands down into dirt to make little holes so that you can drop the seeds in or whatever. And yet in that experience, because I yearned to understand this revelation, so I'm wanting to learn, I ended up learning something completely different, but that brought me face to face with the name Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. And it's through these rabbis that have toiled so hard in exile to bring about a revelation of truth that enables us to then access the palace of the king and come face to face with the name Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and allow our souls to unite to that and draw us up even from the physical reality that we're experiencing. And I was so gently drawn up that I didn't realize it all. I can just remember this wonderful feeling of being aware of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and then just the gentle descent back down to the garden where my hands are in the dirt again.